Hi there! Welcome to Kelsey-Bear's Cozy Fares. I am Kelsey-Bear, and on this channel we drink a lot of tea and we do a lot of sewing. Now for this video, I am going to show you all how I've sewn an ironing board cover for my mother-in-law. If you are looking to sew your own ironing board cover, it's a super affordable and pretty beginner-friendly project. In this video, I will show you all of the tools and materials you need to do this project, and I will show you step by step how to sew your very own ironing board cover. So if that is something you're interested in learning how to do, be sure to get your cup of tea and settle in. Let's do this. For any of you who might be curious, this is some mango green tea that I'm drinking. It's pretty good, but it's not the one I find myself reaching for day after day. So I'm actually trying to kind of finish it up, and that way I can focus on having my fun teas again. Anyway, let's do this for real this time. So you really don't need too many materials for this project. What you need to start with is a cotton fabric. You want to use a cotton or a natural fabric. Be very wary of using any synthetics. If it's something like fleece, having such high heat applied to it is going to cause it to burn. If you don't have any sort of ironing board padding, I would suggest getting a yard or two of cotton batting. If you want to use some heat-resistant fabric, cotton batting, that's a really good idea to have. But I am able to skip that step since my mother-in-law already has a padding that when we place this over, once it's finished, it'll just hold that padding in place. You'll also need either 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch thick elastic. You'll need some pins, and then you're also going to need a safety pin. So once we have all the materials gathered, let's get to it. Okay, so to begin, you need to measure your ironing board. These are all of the dimensions right here. If it has any angles, take notice of that. Measure the distances between any of the angles. My mother-in-law's ironing board goes this way, and this is when it kind of tapers at a little bit of an angle. Okay, so what you're going to do once you have measured all of the sides and angles of your ironing board, you're going to add 3 inches to that. So as you can see, I've added 3 inches all around except for the bottom. I've added 1 extra inch on the bottom, and it is because my mother-in-law's ironing board attaches to the wall. And I'll put a picture in, but she's kind of got some screws going in so that, you know, she can fold it up against the wall or unfold it. So I can't really sew a cover around all the way that I'd like to. But if you have a normal ironing board that's not attached to a wall, you would add 3 inches on this side as well. So yours might look a little bit different than mine, but we'll see how it goes. So now that you have all of your measurements, you can go ahead and do what I did, create a little cutout that you can use so that you can start cutting your fabric. It's pretty likely that you're going to have an easier time cutting fabric than I did, but that's only because I had my sweet Mabel here helping to supervise me. Okay, so let me show you all my math. I have given myself an extra 3 inches on all sides of the ironing board, except for the back. I only gave myself an inch, but I'll show you all what I'll be doing to close that up. Here's my plan. I'm planning on pressing 1/2 inch under, and then 1 inch under, folding and ironing it over again one more time. And that way the raw edge is tucked away. That will give me 1.5 inches. This is all a guesstimate, don't worry. I will be measuring and ironing properly in a second, but this is all to show you my game plan. That leaves me with 1.5 inches left, folded under. Once I have that, I will do a top stitch all around, and that gives me a nice opening, a little casing to work my elastic through. And then to finish it, I will be folding this under, and that's how I'm going to close it. So here I am doing my very first press. This is 1/2 inch that I am pressing first, and I am doing this around all sides except the back end of my ironing board. What I'm going to do when I hit these angles, so this way it irons nicely, is I'm going to do a little fold. I don't know if you can see it, but every time I hit an angle, I'm going to do just a slight fold of the fabric. So there's just a little crisscross, but this will get it to lay nicely as I continue tucking and folding another layer. Now, if you have an ironing board that does not attach to the wall like my mother-in-law's, then you would do the same pressing and folding under as I am doing, but you would do it on all sides. Once you take it to the machine, you would just leave about 2 inches unstitched, and that way you can work the elastic through, but I don't have to worry about that because I'm leaving that whole back end open, and I'll show you all how I seal it up later. But I just wanted to explain what you would do if your ironing board does not attach to the wall and you don't have to leave that back end open. So once you have that 1/2 inch of fabric pressed under, now it's time for you to press under one more time, and this time you're going to press 1 inch under. And here I am using the pins to keep it in place. You may have to move your cat out of the way, but I'm going to be working this fold down all through all the sides, all the angles. And as you hit an angle again, you just do the same little fold so that the fabric lays really nicely, especially when we take it to the machine to sew. So once you're at the machine, make sure you're leaving enough room as you are stitching for the elastic. You want to be cautious that the casing that you're sewing is not too narrow that you cannot wiggle your elastic in. My elastic is about 1 inch. I would recommend 3/4 an inch. That might have been a little bit easier for me, but that's just something to be aware of. Make sure that the width of your casing is big enough for whatever size elastic that you are using. So now that we've sewn our little casing around the edges, we are going to measure out how much elastic we need. So what you want to do is you can do this where you kind of roll it along. You can measure it if you want to be super precise, whichever you prefer. All right, so we'll cut right about here. After I finish working it through the casing, I will actually cut a little bit of the elastic out before I seal it all in, and that's just to get it to pull taut around your ironing board frame. I'm going to go ahead and cut the elastic here. I'm going to get my clothing pin out, and I'm going to show you all how to use one of these pins to help snake the elastic through your casing. So this makes it so much easier to get the elastic in through your casing. You'll take your clip and use this to help wiggle your elastic through. Yep, the safety clip makes it so much easier to work this through. As you are working your elastic through, be sure to just take it nice and slow at the corners. It might take you a couple tries to work the pin through each corner, especially if you have the fabric tucked, but don't worry, you just gotta wiggle it around a bit and you'll be able to get it through.
Once you have gotten the elastic all the way through, it's on both sides, just do a little bit of scrunching along the casing of your ironing board cover. We want to get the elastic as evenly distributed as possible, and that way it looks really good when it's time to close it up.
Okay, so at this point, you've managed to work your elastic through. If again, you're sewing an ironing board cover for an ironing board that is not attached to the wall, like I said earlier, you would have the casing going around here, and you would have just left a couple inches of an opening unsewn so that you can work the casing in. Then at that point, you would stitch your elastic together and you would fold and close the casing. At this point, now that we've worked the elastic through, we want to make sure that the elastic hasn't twisted. In my case, it definitely has. So I'm just going to work on it and try to get it all facing the same way. A folded, twisted elastic is not the end of the world, but it just won't lay as nicely. So that's why we want to get it all to be facing in the same direction. Once your elastic is all facing the same direction, it's not twisted or bunched or folding up on itself, one step that you can take to ensure that it does not twist again, especially if you're running it through the wash or something, is we are going to strategically do some tiny stitches along here, maybe at about every angle or so, and it's just a couple stitches back and forth in the casing here, and that will ensure that the elastic is always facing in the same direction, that it won't twist and turn. Oh my gosh, Mabel.
So once you're done stitching along the casing, then you can go ahead and do as I did, which is I stitched the elastic in at the very end. That's so that it doesn't try to shrink back inside the casing and it holds it in place. And that way it makes it really easy for me to close up my ironing board cover.
It's time for me to hem and close this last little bit here. I gave myself a 1-inch seam allowance. What I'm going to do is fold it over 1/2 inch, press into place, and then I will fold it again, another 1/2 inch. One last thing I am going to do before I take this to the machine, I was actually observing my current ironing board pad, and believe it or not, this has a little strap across going on the back. So I thought, you know, that's not a bad idea, just to help hold it in place. So what I was thinking I would try is cutting off one last piece of elastic and attaching it just to where this is going to be tucked under the ironing board to help pull it taut from this side and hopefully help secure it in place a little bit more.
I also decided to attach a second bit of elastic closer to the back end of my ironing board, and that is going to help hold the ironing board in place that much better. After these last few stitches, you are done. Here is how your ironing board should have turned out. You can see I still need to adjust the cover onto the board a bit better to get rid of the creases, but it looks great, it works great. My mother-in-law is super happy, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.